When was the last time that your soul felt truly at rest? Just think about it. There's like a sigh in the room when I do that, right? When was the last time your soul felt at rest? Everyone goes, ah. When was the last time your soul felt truly at rest? Not just relaxed, but at rest. Not just like you finally coped with how busy you are by like mindlessly numbing out with YouTube or video games or scrolling endlessly on TikTok. Not just like you're numbing yourself, but like you were truly at rest. Not just like I burned out this week, I finally found a night off and I'm just vegging out on the couch. Like not that. But you know what I mean? Like when you experience like restorative rest, like rest that carries forward, like those things we all talk about when it comes to Jesus, like peace and joy. When was the last time your soul felt truly at rest? And not just in general, but your soul, like the innermost part of you, that part of you that feels like the most you, or all the most real stuff in you kind of resides. When did that part of you most recently feel at rest? I'm going to go on a limb here and assume that it has been quite some time for you. It's been some time for me too. I'm going to assume it's been quite some time since your soul felt at rest. And I'm confident in that assumption, and I'm willing to go further, since there's probably many of us in this room here tonight where you say, I don't know if my soul has ever actually been like at rest. Like, I don't know if my soul has ever actually felt just rested. Or at least maybe it's been so long that you can't remember the last time you experienced true soul-level rest. And I'm guessing that even just me asking you this question is kind of stressing you out because you're being forced to kind of contend with how your soul is like not very at rest right now. You're welcome. I'm so confident in making that assumption that it's been a minute since our souls have been at rest because it comes spilling out of us when someone asks us the seemingly innocent question, how are you? It's funny, I've asked students, how are you, for like 10 and a half years now, and there's one response that always seems to be the most popular. It's blank, ... but busy, right? Like the most common response I'll get is, I'm good, busy, or I'm fine, busy, or I'll just get busy, and I'm like, oh no, right? It's always like an asterisk, like however your life's going, there's an asterisk on it, and that asterisk just says busy. But in the Tri-Valley, in Pleasanton, Dublin, Livermore, if I were to say Pleasanton, I mean to talk about all three. Didn't plan to wear the hat, by the way. It just kind of happened. It's a whole spirit God thing. But being in the Tri-Valley, in Pleasanton, being busy isn't really rare, is it? Like, can you think of like anyone you know that isn't busy? I can think of a few, but not like very many people. Like, it doesn't seem like, and the people I think of like are like lazy people, right? People who aren't even trying. They're just kind of like, well, I'm bad at life, so here I am. No, not those people. We'll talk about you later. Some of you are like, he looked at me. No, I'm not looking at anyone in particular. It's just completely happenstance. I don't mean to. I love you. I'm so kidding. No, like we don't know that many not busy people, do we? Why is that? The Tri-Valley seems to manifest busyness. Like it's not a glitch in the system. It's a feature, right? If you live in Pleasanton, Dublin, Livermore, if you're a high schooler, like you are busy. And I know some adults will be like, when I was your age, I was better, and I was in the steel mill, and I was walking uphill in the snow, and got hit by a truck, and that was fine, because I'm the best generation, and I'm a steel worker, and the war. I don't know who that's supposed to be. It's like a weird fusion between, like, baby boomer and, like, a Gen X. Anyway, some adults are just like, you guys are just soft. You need to get it together. High school is not that hard. Get it together. Like, I radically disagree. High school has gotten harder. I graduated high school in 2011. I know. Is it just because I wear hats to cover up my receding hairline? Yeah, that is the reason. I did not graduate high school that long ago, but when I did, let me tell you, I took 3 AP classes my whole time in high school, which I know now is not a lot. I played a sport. I played golf, guys. a golf team when I was a senior, and I'm like, I really want one of those cool, I called them Leatherman jackets because I'm so unathletic. And I'm like, we got to play golf. So I got like 3 buddies together. We all wore hot pink shorts. And in the yearbook, every team captain got to like write a half page, and I designed the yearbook. I went to Valley Christian. That's how I did all this. It's like D20. And so on my yearbook page, there it says, message from the captain, and I wrote the most flowery, like, for the love of the game kind of thing. And was horrible at golf. I am right-handed, and I use lefty clubs, and that was not the reason I was bad. Like, everyone was like, no, it's not the clubs. There's something wrong with him. But anyway, that was my high school experience. I was like a moderately busy person, but let me tell you, it's nothing like what you guys are dealing with. Like, so many of you have let me into your lives and your stress and your anxiety. I've gotten so many late night texts from you. I go to bed at 9, so I see them at like 5 in the morning. Except on Wednesdays, I go to bed at midnight because of stupid church clap. But I get texts from you guys, and you're like, I have 30 AP tests or whatever. But like, it's just like, what you guys are doing, like, let me just validate you for a minute from a supposed legal adult, is a lot. Like, you're in it. Like, you have my respect, you have my pity to some degree, because high school has gotten harder. It's not just you. It's not that you're not tough enough. It's not that you're soft. It's that, no, high school has gotten harder. You are busy. So many of you, from talking to you, you live your life at the point of red line, where it's like you are like one step away from burning out. Does anyone resonate with that? Yeah, I resonate with that on a profound level. We're all just busy. And when I think of busyness, when I think of that low-grade exhaustion and anxiety, I think of this equally inviting and haunting thing that Jesus said. He said this, Matthew 11, very famous. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, hello, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Half of me is like intoxicated by that. Like, half of me sees Jesus say that, and I like lean in at a soul level, right? Where I'm like, Jesus doesn't just give us a belief system, he teaches us how to be human. And part of the way of Jesus, if you're truly worshiping God alone, we find rest for our souls. And I've felt that to many levels. I've had seasons where I really experienced that rest. But does anyone want to admit they feel the other thing, which is frustration? Which is like, then why don't I experience that? Like, I follow Jesus. Why don't I experience the rest and the peace? Or in other words, why is it so hard to say yes to this? If that's an invitation, soul rest, why is it so hard to say yes to that? If God's inviting us into a new way of being, if Jesus is inviting us to not have this busyness, this hectic, manic, frenetic energy going on at all times, where we're just burned out and exhausted, how do we say yes to that? The reason it's so hard to say yes is because you're probably actively worshiping a different God. The first God we're going to talk about in the Tri-Valley is the God of busyness. And I get it right off the bat. You guys are like, I don't worship busyness. I don't like busyness. Like, we're acquaintances at best. We're kind of enemies. If I could snap my fingers and be less busy, I would. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean you haven't become addicted to it. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean that you haven't come to need it. Let me ask you, when COVID started and for those few days where there was nothing going on, after like the novelty of it wore off and you were like, I can do anything, but like after that wore off, how'd you do? Some of us were like, hey, I flourished. Most of us would say, my mental health took a hit. My emotional health took a hit. My spiritual health took a hit. That margin gave us some good things, but mostly being completely still feels uncomfortable to us. Let me ask you, when was the last time you were completely still? Not like asleep, but like the last time that you like sat down, you did nothing, talked to no one, didn't pick up your phone, you just sat and were. Like, you just existed. It's been a long time, I'm guessing, and if you try it, what you'll find is, my guess is you would last about 20 seconds. Before you start to feel not just bored, but anxious. We might not like how busy we are, but you've been conditioned to need it. If we're looking at the Tri-Valley and we're saying almost every high schooler living in the Tri-Valley feels extremely busy, if it's true that like we all really hate busyness and we just want to get rid of it, that makes zero sense, doesn't it? There has to be something deeper. We want to put forward as the first God that Pleasanton and Dublin and Livermore tempt you to worship is the God of busyness. Think about where we live. Think about how affluent this area is. For a moment, see the water you swim in. 4 of the 10 most powerful, valuable companies in the entire world exist 30 minutes from us. Some of the highest performing executives in the entire world exist in this little East Bay Area, Silicon Valley thing. There was a Harvard Business Review 4 years ago where they interviewed global markets, like in all these different cultures, about what the signs of success and achievement were. 90% of the world said the signs of success and achievement are leisure and relaxation. Having a lot of free time because you've worked so hard, now you have so much money you can relax. All of you just got a puzzled look on your face because we know the opposite is true here, isn't it? Signs of importance and success and achievement, that's not leisure, it's burnout. Like people who seemed burnt out and they're just like not sleeping very much, they're burning the candle at both ends, they are just like nose to the grindstone, sparks are flying everywhere, like titans of industry. We look at those people and we go, wow, they're important, they've got it together. They don't work a 9 to 5, they work like a 9 to 9, 7 days a week. Jeez, that's incredible. Wow. And we know that's not good, but we've become so habituated and used to busyness, it's like we're stuck to it. Like we can't not be busy as much as we hate it. We worship that thing. We worship our busyness because we're afraid we would lose all of our importance and sense of success and achievement if we ever stopped being busy. What I want to say to you tonight is busyness is not a schedule problem. It's not even a high school problem. It's a spiritual problem. And the devil is doing it on purpose to weaken your yes to Jesus' invitation into rest. Think about this. Are you the first generation that's been busy in this area? No. I'm a millennial. I'm sorry. Sorry for breaking the world is what I mean. Is my generation the first generation that was busy in this area? No, not my parents. You can do the whole thing. We have a generational idolatry problem in the Tri-Valley of busyness addiction. The other word for that is demonic spiritual warfare. Imagine this for a minute. Imagine this. The enemy, the devil, we have a God, we have an enemy who doesn't like you very much, doesn't want you to worship Jesus, doesn't want you to flourish and follow Jesus. He wants you to buy into rival forms of flourishing that ultimately become death to you. Imagine this. The enemy says, I want you weakened, distracted, and so burned out that the sliver of your life remaining from all of your busyness is too weak to follow Jesus. If that's what the enemy wants, for you to be so weakened that you just don't say yes to Jesus, then his weapons are not like a full-on frontal spiritual assault. His weapons are AP tests, high-involvement sports, and college applications. And he's doing a bang-up job. Those things are incredible laser-focused weapons at weakening us to a state where our relationship with God becomes mediocre at best. Here's a quote from John Ortberg, who pastors just across the bridges in San Mateo, I think. Is that where San Mateo is? I don't know. Don't know geography. He says this, for many of us, the great danger is not that we will renounce our faith. It's not that you'll leave Christianity. It's that you will become so distracted and rushed and preoccupied that we will settle for a mediocre version of your faith. Because that's what happens. When you're so busy, when you're so frenetic, when you're addicted to busyness, when the false god of busyness in the Tri-Valley is tempting you to worship it, bend the knee, give yourself to the busyness, you probably won't renounce your faith, but you'll settle for a weak, thin, useless version of it, where Jesus isn't actually able to save you because you haven't actually gotten in the wheelbarrow, so to speak. You haven't trusted him. You're not surrendering. Busyness puts your ability to surrender under direct assault. It weakens you, tricks you into settling for a mediocre version of the Jesus who can actually save you. So what I want you guys to understand is this. Following Jesus in the Tri-Valley, it's not just saying yes to God. It is straight up resistance to the false god of busyness. You cannot follow Jesus well in Pleasanton if you are not actively resisting the hurry and the busyness. The yes to God means no to busyness. It means no to settling for a mediocre version of him. It's resisting the God of busyness and saying yes to God's rest. They go hand in hand. And so what I want to do is this. That's the bad news. Every week what I want to do is I want to end with 2 or 3 just rigorously practical ways to resist the enemy. Rigorously practical ways to resist worshiping the God of busyness and how to say yes to God's invitation of rest. And so what I want to do is give you 3 deeply practical ways to resist that false god of that religion of doing, that do more, be frenetically busy, take 5 AP tests, play every sport. Here's how you resist it. Number 1, relentlessly protect spaces of Christian community. In your life, relentlessly protect the spaces of Christian community that God has given you, including this one. You're like, is Jake saying if my sport has practice on Wednesdays, I should quit your sport? Yep. Let me ask you, what's your response to that? Did you get defensive? Why did you get defensive? What are you defending? I'm not saying I want you here because I want you, and I'm saying that strong. I'm saying that strongly on purpose to get a rise out of you. But check that rise. I'm not saying just run up to your coach tonight and be like, I can't do it anymore. But what I'm saying is this. If you're in a sport that is demanding the lion's share of your time in high school and all you have are the exhausted, sloppy seconds for Christian community, you weren't meant to follow Jesus alone. You weren't designed to do it. And Christian community is where we do this the best. We've seen in the past year, especially at camp, Christian community builds you. It is your backbone. It is almost impossible to follow Jesus alone. We need each other in stubborn loyalty. We're in this thing together, whatever verbiage you want to use. And if you're unwilling to even think about if your sport is conflicting with that, that's an idol. I'm not saying sports are bad. Sports are good things, especially golf. But they can so easily become ruling things in Pleasanton. One of the things you'll realize about Pleasanton is that there's no medium speed on anything, is there? You're either like not doing something or you are 100% all in. Like there's very rarely like a healthy balance when it comes to sports. I'm not saying quit your sport. I'm saying, have you ever actually thought about that? Have you ever actually prayed, is this a healthy thing in my life? Or protect spaces of Christian community. Maybe that means more discipline in your life. I get it. School's hard. It's rough. But let me tell you, if you don't carve out time and space for Christian community, that's going to do violence to your soul. Guys, I'll be straight up honest with you. I know I'm being a little heavy-handed. I'm heavy-handed because I'm angry and I'm heartbroken. Because I can't count the number of freshmen in college I've seen that have gone through this ministry who were super plugged in freshman and sophomore year, got super into a sport they always wanted to play. And it's not just that they left like my youth group, it's that they stopped plugging into Christian community at all. Every one of those people said like, yeah, I know I can't make youth group, but I'll still like find time to like hang out with my Christian friends and like kind of do like a impromptu church thing. No, you won't. Not in a town like this, you won't. We're too busy. Life's too hard. I can't count the number of students that have reached freshman year of college and like their parents call me and they're like, they're not following Jesus anymore. They're not even going to church. Like, what happened? I'm like, what? This is not a mystery. They weren't part of Christian community for like 4 years. Their formation space was not the church. It was a field. And you're wondering why they don't follow Jesus. I'm kind of trying to scare you. Because the God of busyness in Pleasanton loves using hyper over-involved sports. I'm not saying to go and quit your sport. I'm saying ask yourself, is it making it harder for you to follow Jesus? And if the answer is yes, what matters more to you? Or is there a healthy change you can make with that sport? Can you talk? I know coaches are scary. I get it. I don't get it. But I know they're scary. Talk to your coach. This is a little out there, but if like every Christian in high school in the Tri-Valley went to their coaches and said, hey, I can't make practice on these days because I gotta be with my family over at church, sports would have to change. Like what if Christians stopped bending the knee to coaches? I don't know, just a thought. Thing number 2, This is even more radical. Practice a weekly Sabbath. That's a fun one, isn't it? If you don't know what a Sabbath is, it is intentional, set aside, usually a day of the week, where you focus on being unhurried. You're not producing or creating anything. You're not performing. And you are somehow with God and enjoying his creation. Don't think of yourself like in like a yoga position on the couch, like reading the Bible all day. For like 3 years, my Sabbath with Jill was we would get up late, we would go get lunch downtown, we'd go wine tasting, play a game of cards with each other, go home, hang out, play a board game, watch a movie, and that whole day we were talking with each other, saying, what is the Lord doing in your life? Like, what do you see going on with you spiritually? We took time to slow down and not produce. Now, my Sabbath is Saturdays, because I work Sundays. Love you, but it is work, because it's exhausting. My Sabbath is Saturdays, and my rule on Saturdays is I do nothing. That is me producing. Like, it doesn't matter if I have the world's best idea for a sermon, which is hard for me to not do anything with. I don't even write it down. I say, if it mattered today, it'll matter tomorrow. The Lord will give it back to me if he needs to. Like, I do nothing for producing. That's what a Sabbath is. The Sabbath was given to God's people right after he took them out of slavery in Egypt. Imagine this, God's people, 7 days a week, completely enslaved. One of the first things God does is give them a day off. God's rad. He's pretty cool. When we refuse to Sabbath, we play into the enslaving spirit of Pharaoh. The whole reason that God gives Israel a Sabbath is so they don't become Egypt. So they don't become an enslaver, so they don't become enslaved to the God of busyness. That's why a Sabbath exists. Jesus says this, the Sabbath exists for you, not you for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath is a gift. Y'all, my Sabbath day, favorite day of my week, by far. Here's how you can practice it in high school. First, focus on slowing down, being present, and not producing. Second, plan your Sabbath 2 to 3 days ahead. That is worth the price of admission alone. That right there, you are not going to accidentally take a Sabbath. You are not going to accidentally put the school books away, stop producing, stop working, stop stressing. You're not going to accidentally do that. Plan 2 or 3 days ahead. Jill and I have a Sabbath meeting on Mondays or Tuesdays where we sit down and we say, if we want to take a day where we say yes to God's rest on Saturday, what do we need to get done ahead of time? What can I rally to do after church on Sunday? It's hard, but you can do it. And third, be in this together. The vast majority of high schoolers who try to Sabbath fail, not because your willpower isn't strong enough, but because you try to do it alone. Many of you don't have parents that practice the Sabbath. I get it. Many of you don't have parents who are Christians. That's fine. Do it with each other. Tonight, in your small groups, you're challenged to find someone else or a couple someone else in your small group and pick them as Sabbathers with you. To say, hey, what if we met up? Maybe you can't do a full day. Maybe it's hey, don't do less than a half day. You need some time. But wait, what if the first half of Saturdays, let's say it is, choose a different day. Stop shaking your head at me. Choose a different, whatever day it is. Choose the half day and say, hey, the three of us, we're going to meet up every Saturday. Maybe we'll read scripture together. Maybe we'll pray together. Maybe we'll just put the phones away and go on a hike and just not produce anything. Maybe we'll just enjoy God's creation. Make it your own, whatever it is that gives you true soul rest. And I'll say this, right now I'm going to name what's going through all of your heads, is that I don't have time to take a Sabbath. You don't have time to not do this. I'll say right now, to say I don't have time to take a Sabbath is to say I don't have time to be faithful. Sabbath is one of the 10 commandments. It's in there for a reason. It's not buried in the back hallways of Leviticus next to grow a beard. It's on the stone tablets. God had 10 things he told Israel to do. Literally, take a break is one of them. And if you're saying, that would be so hard for me, let me say this. The more difficult it would be for you to practice a Sabbath in your life, the more desperately you probably need to start. Think about why that is. If it's so hard for you to imagine taking a Sabbath, that means you've become so addicted to the busyness and the effort and the pace. And I know what you're doing is important, but y'all, I'll be honest, I don't know how you follow Jesus in the Tri-Valley without faithing into a practice of Sabbath. If you don't, I'm not saying your faith is irrelevant. I'm not saying are illegitimate. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying if you want to durably and with strength and with rest follow Jesus as a healthy you're going to need a Sabbath. Maybe it can't be a full day. Do half a day. Thing number 3, last thing. Prioritize present faithfulness over future achievement. My interns and Fiona hear me say this all the time, but what does God require of you? He requires faithfulness. Like, what does God require of you? He requires faithfulness. What does God reward? He rewards faithfulness. God does not require your ambition. He doesn't require your achievement. He doesn't require whatever school it is you think will make you enough. God requires your faithfulness here and now. So much of the stress, I think, that comes with school and AP classes and college apps in this busy town we live in isn't because they're hard. It's because if you mess up, it makes you afraid for your future, right? You won't get into the college you want. You'll have to go for a lesser college, not your dream college. But what I want to put on you and get you to think about, last thing is this. Think of faithfulness like it's a precious resource. When I say faithfulness, I mean following Jesus in a healthy and consistent way. Think of faithfulness as a resource, a precious one. It's not worth spending your faithfulness to get future achievement. Future achievement and future success is not worth the price of sacrificing your own faithfulness. What does God require of you? He requires faithfulness here and now. Jesus says, how sad would it be for you to gain the whole world but lose your soul in the process? And guys, I am so concerned that the busyness of AP classes and everything else we wrap ourselves up in school is literally that. Gaining the world and losing your soul in the process because it's getting so busy and so hurried. Y'all, Jesus openly invites us into true rest. And let me tell you from experience, you can find it in Jesus. The rest you long for is found in Jesus. It's not found in future success or some perfect cocktail of outcomes in your life. Rest is found in Jesus Christ alone. If you sacrifice your faithfulness in the meantime, you're not going to find it. You're not saying yes to God. God issues you an invitation. It is yours for the taking. You can actually do this. That's what I want to say. And it will cost you. Many of you are looking at this and being like, that seems harder than I thought it would be. Yeah. Following Jesus has a cost. Jesus said, pick up your cross, follow me. Following Jesus has a cost. It always has. It always will. You can't both serve the God of busyness and serve Jesus. You got to pick one. Saying yes to God means saying no to other things. God lives here and now in the present. Don't forsake him because you're so focused on what you want in the future. And yeah, if you impose healthy limits for yourself, not taking the extra AP class, you will probably have less awesome achievements in the future. I'm not saying you'll be the same person. No, you'll probably be less impressive. But you know who God uses often, almost all the time in the Bible? Obscure, faithful people. Almost exclusively. Jesus was extremely obscure. He was a rabbi, he got well known, but Jesus came out of nowhere. Who God uses are faithful people who are still obscure. You don't need to achieve everything Pleasanton wants you to. I'll end with this. As theologian and local gym owner Lance Terpstra does, Pleasanton has a lot of treadmills to run on. A lot of things to do. A lot of busyness to do. A lot of things that feel like, this is what I need to be doing. Don't fall for it. Don't do violence to your soul in the name of achieving something great for yourself. You can lose your soul in the process. Instead, point out that false god for what it is. It says, I'm not going to bend the knee to the God of busyness. I'm going to say, I'm going to take Jesus' invitation to rest, not because I should, but because it is better. It is so much better.